Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another entry into our reading journal. I am Voodoo Pickles, and today we're going to be talking about Watch the Sky. So, this was written by Kristen Hubbard and was published in 2015. The genres are fiction, middle grade, and YA. Hi, Percy. So, this book takes place on a farm in a small town in the middle of America. I don't believe it says where it's from or where the book takes place specifically. If it does, then I don't remember it. And we follow Jory. And Jory is in middle school or elementary school, late elementary, middle school, somewhere around there. And he has a stepdad named Caleb. Caleb was in the military, and he looks for signs everywhere. He says that there are signs to be everywhere and that the signs are going to tell them what they need to do, and that anything can be a sign. So he reads newspapers every day. He circles articles, he circles words, he crosses things out. He listens to the radio. He goes outside in the middle of the night, and he's just looking for signs, like a double yolked egg they bring up in the book and on the back. And he's just very into signs. And he's also into preparedness. So his stepdad is looking for signs. He's talking about all of these type of signs that are going to be happening, and that they're waiting for something. They're waiting for a sign to happen so that they continue with the plan that him and his mom set in place. And Jory keeps kind of asking his mom, what is he talking about? A sign for what? And she just doesn't tell him anything and says that'll be when the sign happens, Caleb will let him know. And so we have Jory on this farm. We also have his younger brother, Ansel, who is Caleb and his mother's child. And we also have Kit. Kit was found in a pumpkin patch on the land. And she was found there, and they brought her in. And so she lives with them now, except she doesn't talk. They have no idea where she came from. They have no idea what her real name is, how old she is, or anything about her, just because she won't talk. And they all live together on this farm in the middle of nowhere. And one day, Jory is told by Caleb that he is going to be going to public school. And Jory and his mom, when she got married to Caleb and they moved onto the farm, Jory was homeschooled. So he was homeschooled for most of his life, and his mom's been the only teacher he's known. But now he's going to be going into public school. And Caleb tells him that he's going to be going into public school. He's going to be interacting with other people, so there are some rules that he needs to follow. Some of these rules are: don't answer questions, question everything, don't talk about his family or Caleb or the farm. Definitely do not bring up Ansel or Kit talking to anybody. And when he asks him, why does he not need to tell him about Ansel, about Kit, or about anything else, Caleb tells him that if he tells anybody about Ansel or Kit, that the officials are going to be brought to the farm. Or they're not going to be brought. They're going to come to the farm, and they're going to take Ansel and Kit away. And so if he tells anybody about them, his family is going to be taken away from him, and it'll be all his fault. So he needs to not tell anybody about Ansel or Kit or the farm or anything. And so he is excited to go to school, but he is absolutely terrified at the same time that he's going to say something that is wrong, and he's going to have his family taken away. But he gets to go to school. And he's just like, yes, all right, I'm going to go to school. And that's the whole reason why they accepted Kit into their family, was they didn't want to call the police or child protective services or anything like that, because it would have brought the officials to their farm, and they had Ansel at the time, so they didn't want anybody to know. And so they just kind of kept Kit there, and she just started living with them. And when Jory goes to school, Jory is picked on by his other classmates, like children do. And they pick on him a lot more because he wears a lot of camouflage and he wears combat boots. And so children being children pick on him, and he doesn't like being bullied. And while he's in school and in classes, he realizes that he knows a lot in certain subjects, more than what the other students seem to know. So he wants to raise his hand, he wants to answer the questions, and he wants to get praise from the teacher, except that he has Caleb's voice in his head telling him no. So he doesn't, and it bugs him because he's like, I know the answer to that. I know this. And so he goes, when he starts school, he's just like, ugh, that's just... I like being out, but I don't like I don't like the people that are picking on me. I don't like that I can't answer questions. And around lunchtime and after school, he meets these other couple of kids who, I think one of them's name is Mary. It's either Mary or Maria, one of the two. She decides that she wants to be his friend. She is super outgoing, extremely extroverted, just like, hey, you're the new kid, let's talk. And Caleb is trying to ignore her because he doesn't want to answer any of his questions. Or any of her questions. He doesn't want to interact with her, but she's kind of not taking no for an answer, and she's just following him around, asking him all these things, introducing, and more so just talking at him after a while than to him. And so this is kind of how his school days go. He goes to school, and he gets bullied, and then Mary Maria decides to stick up for him, and there's another kid there who sticks up for him. They really want to be his friend, and they start asking him about his farm, and they say that his farm is haunted, which he responds by going, "Nuh-uh." And they're like, yeah, obviously your farm is haunted. Like, you have a haunted barn on your farm. This is a known fact. And he wants to defend the barn, but he's never been in the barn, so he's like, I don't know if it's haunted. He's like, is it haunted? Is this why there's a padlock on it? What if it is haunted? Am I living by a haunted barn? And then he starts to psych himself out and freak out a little bit, and he starts to have trouble sleeping and some nightmares about the barn being haunted because these kids told him that the barn was haunted, and this barn has always been on this property, and it's had a padlock on it for as long as he's known. He's like, we don't really have any animals, but they grow fruits and vegetables and stuff there. So he's just like, I don't know what's in this barn. So he's starting to freak out about this barn. And while he's doing this, one of these days, Caleb wakes everybody up, and there's a meteor shower that happens, and they go outside, and it's a beautiful meteor shower, and Caleb tells them during this that this is the sign that they were waiting for. And while the meteor shower is happening, and while it's going on, he takes them towards the edge of the property. In the middle of the night, all of the children and his wife, and at the edge of the property, there is a canyon. It kind of cuts off, and there's a canyon in it, and he tells them that this is why he originally bought this property, was for this canyon specifically, and the fact that it was a farm in the middle of nowhere. And he says that they are going to start digging, and doesn't really tell them why. He just tells them that they're going to start digging. And Jory's just like, well, dig what? What are we going to do? And Caleb doesn't answer him. Caleb doesn't really talk to him as much. And he asks his mom, and his mom just says, trust Caleb. He'll tell you when you're ready to know. And so Caleb creates a schedule. So there's almost continuous digging at night because he doesn't want anybody to know that they're digging on the property. So all of this happens in the middle of the night. And he has, I think it's 6-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts that they're all starting to dig. And he tells Jory that he's got to dig at night, and then he still has to go to school. So Jory does. He starts digging at night, and then he goes to school. But when he's going to school, he starts to be extremely tired. And he starts falling asleep. The teachers notice that there's something wrong, that something has changed. And they try to talk to Jory and they ask him what's going on, except he hears Caleb's voice in his head that's saying that he can't trust the teachers, he can't trust anybody except for the family. And why are they asking him? Do they know? Do they know what they're doing? Are they going to try and stop them? What's going on? So he doesn't say anything to them, and he starts trying to avoid them a little bit, and he's trying to fake that he's fine and everything's all right and he's not extremely exhausted. And so the teachers do what the teachers do, and they call his house. When they call his house, Caleb and his mom get really upset. Caleb gets more upset than his mom does and tells them that they will have to adjust the digging schedule to make sure that Jory has more time not digging so he can continue to do his homework and he can get more sleep and he won't be so exhausted. Kit's annoyed at this because now she has to dig more. His mother's just like, okay, this is what we'll do. So the other members of the family have to dig more so Jory can sleep more and finish his homework. And at first he's excited about this extra sleep. He's excited to get more sleep, and he starts doing his homework, and he starts just being more interactive at school because he's feeling a little bold. And so when the teacher starts asking questions for the class, he raises his hand. And when he raises his hand, he answers the question that the teacher asked, and it's a correct answer, and he gets praise from the teacher. He decides that he really likes answering questions. So he starts becoming more not interactive, more engaged. There we go. I think he becomes more engaging in his classes and in school. And so he starts to actually talk to the people who've been trying to be friends with him. My note says April, so I was really wrong. So her name is April, and she lives on the way that Jory walks home. She lives down the road, and he's always annoyed because when he goes and walks home, the two kids that were bullying him live or hang out close to where April lives. So she always comes in. She's always like saving him, telling the other kids to go buzz off. And he starts to talk with her more. He starts to hang out, and he was like, my barn isn't haunted. And she's like, well, have you gone in there? Like, have you checked? Did you ask your parents? Like, she's trying to talk to him more about this barn being haunted. And she's like, unless you've been in there and there's no way for you to know that it's not haunted. And he gets to meet her family. Well, Caleb and his mother and Kit are more engaged in digging. He has more time to himself, so he meets April's family. He goes into the house, and she's like, no, come on, stop by for dinner or have a snack or something. And her dad is a stay-at-home dad. I don't know if he works remotely or if he's just a stay-at-home dad, but he's at home. And so he decides that he's going to be making dinner for them. He has some avocados getting cut up, and he's doing a type of tofu meal, but he was like, it tastes really good. He's like, just try some. And Jory's never heard of these type of foods before. And he's very in awe that April's family is very openly communicating with each other, and they're trying different foods. And when April interrupts her parents while they're talking, they don't get mad at her. They don't lecture her. They don't tell her that she needs to respect the family dynamic and wait her turn to talk, or only talk when she's spoken to. And he's just seeing this other different side of a family dynamic that he's just surprised by. So he starts hanging out with April, and he gets home late, and he gets in trouble with Caleb, and Caleb takes him to the barn. And at this point, Jory is just like, he's going to feed me to the ghost in the barn because I was late and I had dinner somewhere else. And he's really nervous and upset, Caleb takes him to the barn, unlocks it, and shows him inside. When he goes inside, he sees all of these like Rubbermaid tubs. And all of these tubs have a piece of tape on it, and on that tape is written like Jory ages this to this, Ansel ages this to this, Kit this to this, and there's just tubs on tubs on tubs stacked in there. And he starts looking around and is like, toilet paper, kitchenware or kitchen stuff, like all of these type of things. And he's like, what is this? And Caleb tells him that when he was in the military, Caleb has a favorite story that he likes to tell them all the time. And this is told to us towards the beginning. And it's when he was in the military, he was overseas in a combat zone, and him and his like fire team squad were under fire. And his commanding officer there told him to stop hiding because Caleb was scared, and he hid behind some type of wall. And so his commanding officer, whoever was in charge, told him to get out from there and return fire. And his fire team or squad, whatever was in this firefight, Caleb decided to not listen to him, turn around and run away. And he ran away and he hid. And so when he likes to tell that story to Jory and Kit, and when he tells it, he was like, so I listened because I watched the signs that something bad was going to happen. And if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have been here to marry, Jory's mom and to have you guys here, and none of this would be here. And so it was never told as a bad story or as something that had more to it. And while Caleb and Jory are in the barn, Caleb tells him the whole story, that this happened, but the rest of his fire team or squad were killed. And when the rest of the military people came around, that they found him and took him to jail. And when they took him to jail, he was in military jail, and he said that they would taunt him, that they were like mean to him, they bullied him. And Jory thinks of the bullies that he's encountered at school. So he's like, those people are super mean and rude. And he's like, so I was bullied and everything. He's like, and then after a while, they kind of forgot about me in this jail cell. And when they forgot about him, they would just talk openly about what was going on. And he said that there was some military police officers that were talking about an event that was going on that they heard about from other military members and maybe some higher up members. It's kind of vague. But they said that an event would happen that would destroy not the world, but like the nation, like an EMP or something would be dropped, or a nuclear weapon would be detonated at some place, and everybody would be, well, not everybody, most people would be killed. And so he was listening to this, and when he was eventually discharged and everything, he decided that what this meant was there was going to be a catastrophic event, and he needed to prepare for said event. So he was looking for some place to create a bunker, and it needed to be completely off the grid because the government would know if he had hired somebody to build the bunker, or if he bought like a pre-made bunker. So it needed to be nobody needed to know where this was at, so that he would be safe with his family. Except at the time, he didn't have a family. And then he met Jory's mom. Jory's mom worked as a waitress in a small little diner, and she would have Jory sit at a dining table because His father, I don't know what happened to him, what had happened with him, but she was a single mom for a while. And so she was struggling to take care of them as a waitress, as a single mom working as a waitress with a small child. And he would be at the diner, and there was a man that was badgering his mom, and he was saying inappropriate things and trying to grab at her. And when this happened, Caleb was at the diner, and he got up and he punched the guy in the face and kicked him out of the diner. And then the next day, Caleb came back and started showing up more and eventually asked his mom out. And then they got married. And it happened fairly quickly. And then when it happened, Jory and his mother moved to the farm. And then she got pregnant with her youngest, Ansel. And that's just kind of where they've been. And he said that he shared what he knew with Jory's mom. So they've been preparing. They've been using what little money they have after Caleb works, because when Jory's mom and Caleb got married, she stopped working. And Jory thought this was the bestest thing, that she always had headaches, that she was very weak, and that it was a good thing that she wasn't working. She was so anxious that it's hard for her to drive around even. So he was really excited that she didn't have to work anymore. So Caleb's just working, and any type of resources that they could gather with whatever money they had left, they went out and they bought clothes for Jory, for his mom and Caleb. And then when she got pregnant, they bought stuff for Ansel, and enough clothes that it's separated by age and by size, that they would be fine in the bunker that they were now digging in the bottom of the canyon. And then when Kit came along, they also started preparing to allow her in as well. So that's what's in the barn. He explained this to Jory, and Jory was just surprised and gobsmacked that this is what they were doing, and that he was so terrified that the world was going to end. And then he started thinking about April and about his other new friends that he was getting, and he's like, well, what's going to happen to them? Can they come into the bunker with us? Are they going to be okay? And he couldn't ask Caleb about it because he wasn't supposed to be making any friends. So he's thinking of how to warn April and his friends that they also need to get into a bunker to be safe. And Caleb tells them that they were waiting for the sign to start building the bunker. They saw the sign, they are building the bunker, and that after the bunker is built, they're going to be waiting for another sign. And once that sign happens, they're going to go into the bunker and they're going to seal themselves in. Because when that second sign happens, the event is going to happen. And they will be safe under there for, it's like a minimum of 90 days, but we can stay in there. We'll have enough supplies to be in there for like a year or two. And so that's what he's explaining to Jory. And Jory's just like, okay, I'm really surprised that this is going to happen. While this is happening, after this happens, Jory has a dream where he is in the house, in the regular farmhouse, and then he's just walking around. He hears a noise, and then he sees Kit standing there, and Kit has stars for eyes, and then she starts to speak to him. And so he's like, okay. And he gets excited. Then he starts thinking, I think I heard her speak once. I'm pretty sure I did once. And he starts like focusing on that. They kind of go on with the schedule. He goes to school. He still digs when it's his turn to dig, and they're just continuously digging this bunker at the bottom of the canyon in the middle of the night. And then one day, he goes to his new friend April, and they're talking, and she's getting upset with him because she's always sharing her life and her stories, and she's talking mostly at him, and she wants him to now like reciprocate and be a friend. And she's like, friends talk to each other, friends share secrets, friends just hang out. Like, you're not hanging out with me, you're not talking to me, this is getting frustrating. And so Jory decides to tell her about Kit. he tells her that he has a sister, Kit, and that he's not supposed to tell her about him. He's not supposed to tell anybody about her. And so she feels better that he told her a secret. And then she was like, you know what? You should bring her to hang out sometime. And he's like, I can't bring her to hang out sometime. We're not allowed to go off the farm together. And she's like, no, we should do this. And she's telling him about this area that they go sledding on this hill. And her, and the other friend, and Kit should go and hang out. And he does. He brings Kit out, and they go sledding on this grass hill on cardboard boxes, and they're having so much fun. And they're just having all of this fun. And he brings Kit to the playground, and like they're hanging out on this playground until Kit falls off the swings and bangs up her knee. And she gets, like, her knee's all skinned up and it hurts and she starts to bleed. And so the nearest place is April's house. They take Kit there, and April's mom, like, gets a Band-Aid out. She gets a first aid kit. She cleans up her knee and bandages her up, and then she starts asking questions. And then Kit doesn't talk to her. And then Jory's kind of freaking out a little bit, and he's telling April, don't tell her where Kit came from. But the mom's just asking, like, normal type of questions, and then she gets suspicious and starts asking more questions. And they just kind of bounce. They just kind of leave. And when they go back, Jory's mom sees the Band-Aid on Kit's knee and starts to get upset with Jory about Kit. And so she gets really upset with him, and she's like, don't tell Caleb. And he's like, okay. Jory sees Kit at night. He wakes up, and sometimes they wake up and they just kind of hang out a little bit. And she's outside sitting by the barn. So he goes over there and he's like, hey, what are you doing? What's up, yo? And she starts giggling as they start hanging out, and he's just talking at her, not expecting her to respond back. And she actually talks to him, and he is super surprised. And he asks her about what her life was before she came to them. And she says she doesn't remember. And as everything continues, they start to dig more of the bunker out. Caleb decides that he needs Jory's help to be his lookout, because they now need to get the plumbing system for the bunker ready. So while Jory's mom and Kit and Ansel are back at the bunker still digging, getting everything ready, Caleb and Jory go to this pipeline system, which is the town's water supply. And they attach a pipe to it, and it allows them to siphon off water from the town's water supply. And Caleb tells Jory that, again, he cannot tell anybody about this because they're not supposed to be doing it, and that this will get them in trouble, but it'll allow them to have fresh water while everybody is dealing with, like, the end of the world. Jory is starting to get a little nervous about the whole bunker thing, about being in a bunker with Caleb and everybody else. And he's like, well, what if he's wrong? This is where he starts to question all the things that Caleb has been telling him based on what he's learning in school from his teachers and from his new friends. And he's just like, well, I don't know if everybody's as bad as you say they are. Their nearest neighbor is an older woman, and Caleb and Jory's mom has always told them that this older woman, if she sees them on their property, she's going to sick her dogs on them, and the dogs are going to eat them, and that she's going to call the authorities, and the officials are going to come to the farm and take Ansel and Kit away, and it'll be all of their fault for letting them be seen on the farm from this old lady who lives on the farm over. So now Jory's questioning all of the things that Caleb has been saying. He's taken all of these, like, question everything things that Caleb's been telling him to do to other people and turning it on Caleb. So he's starting to question all of these things that Caleb has been saying to him. And he's like, I don't think everybody's as bad as he says they are. I don't think things are as bad. And so while he is walking home from school, there is a dog in the road, and he panics a little bit because he does not know this dog, and Caleb has been telling him that, the dogs are going to eat him. And so he sees the dog, he freezes, the dog runs at him, he starts getting scared, and he wants to run away, except he's frozen. And he's like, this is it, I'm going to be eaten by a dog. I'm not even going to make it to the bunker. This is it. My life is over. And he's waiting for the pain to start, except he's like, there's no pain. And he opens his eyes, and the dog's like jumping around him, super excited, barking a little bit and licking his hands, and just wants to play. The dog just wants to play. And so he's like, oh, okay. And so he's like, this is fine. And he's starting to play with the dog, and he's like, I wonder if a dog will fit in the bunker with us. He's like, a dog would be fun. Maybe I can bring it to the farm with Kit, and we can hang out with this dog and just have some fun. And then the neighbor that he's been told was like an evil person starts like, running at him. And he's like, oh no. She's coming here. What do I do? And she shows up, and she's out of breath a little bit. She has a leash, and she's like, oh, good. She's like, you got him. And she's like, that's my dog right there. She's like, I usually keep him over here, but he got out, and now he's running around crazy. Thank you for stopping him so I can catch up. And Jory's like, okay. She's like, hey, you're that kid who lives at that farm, right? And he doesn't want to talk to her. And he's looking down, and she's like, oh, fine. And she introduces herself, and she's like, oh, I see you around the farm. I see you and that little girl. What's her name? And I was like, I don't know. So I see you guys running around and playing and things. And he's like, oh, no, she's seen Kit. Now she's going to tell the officials. And instead, she tells him that they should stop by sometime because she bakes a lot, and she doesn't eat everything she bakes. So so Jory and Kit can have some snacks. And she was like, well, I'm going to take my dog now, and I'll see you later. Bye, Jory. And he's kind of just gobsmacked again, just like, what? She's not how Caleb said she would be. That's so crazy. So he starts questioning what Caleb is saying more, and he asks his mom, do they really need to go into the bunker? On one of the nights that Caleb is out at work, he's like, do we need to go to the bunker? And she's like, well, what else are we going to do? And he's like, Mom, we lived before Caleb. We can do that again. You can go back to work and we'll be fine. And he's like, everything was fine before Caleb. You met Caleb, and it'll be fine again. And she tells him, she's like, is that what you remember? And he was like, yeah. And she was like, Jory, no. She's like, we were almost destitute. We were so poor that she's like, I wasn't eating. I was struggling to feed you. And she was like, I can't do this on my own. And she was like, and you're asking me to do this not with just you as a child, but with Kit, with Ansel. She's like, I can't feed all you guys. I can't take care of all you guys. She was like, we would have been kicked out on the street if Caleb hadn't come by and saved us. And then she's like, I believe what he's saying, because why would he lie to me? And he's like, but what if he's wrong? And she's like, well, I believe him. I believe in Caleb. Jory is just kind of upset with his mother, and he's just like, oh. But then he's like, what, were we really bad off before Caleb? And he's trying to remember, except he was very young at the time, so he doesn't really remember all of that much. And he's just like, maybe we were. I don't know. And protective services show up, child protective services show up on the farm when I think Caleb is still at work, or he's out on a grocery run or something, and they ask about Kit. And they lie to them, and they're like, well, there's no Kit here. We don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, oh, we only have Jory as listed as the only minor living at this house. And they see Ansel, and they're like, who's that? How old is he? And they are just kind of like, you need to leave right now. I'm not telling you anything. You just need to leave. And Jory's mom gets really upset and really paranoid, and she was just like, who could have told them about Kit? She's like, I wonder if it was the neighbor. And Jory knows that the neighbor has seen Kit around, except she's seen her around all the time because they're neighbors. She sees the kids running around outside all the time. But she's never called Child Protective Services before, and he knows that from the conversation that she really thinks that Kit's his sister. And so he's like, who else could it have been? And the only other person that he could have thought was April's mom had called Child Protective Services on Kit. So when he goes to school, he tells April that he confronts her about her mom calling Child Protective Services, and she's like, we were worried. She was really worried because she saw how Kit was, like the state of Kit, and she was worried that she wasn't speaking, and the way that you ran out, that something could be going on. So she called, and she wouldn't listen to me when I told her not to. And so Jory tells her, we can't be friends anymore. And so she starts to cry in class, and their other friend, he gets involved, and he's just like, why are you making her cry? You're such a jerk. How could you make her cry? And then so he starts getting angry and emotional, and he starts to yell at him, and the lunch monitor person, teacher in the classroom, comes over, and Jory starts throwing his lunch tray around. And so he is taken to his teacher's room, or principal's room, and his teacher is there, and the teacher tells him that they will need to call his parents because this is odd behavior and this is really weird, and they need to figure out what's going on. And so Jory panics, and he runs, and he grabs his teacher's cell phone, and he runs. And when he runs, he's caught on the edge of school property, and his teacher's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? He's like, give me my phone back. And so he gives the phone back and then runs home. And he just continues to run. And when he gets there, he tells his mom and Caleb that he wants to come and tell them that, this is what happened. I'm sorry. And when he gets there, Caleb and his mom are already on the phone with the school. And so he starts panicking a little bit. And they tell the teacher that this is pretty much his fault, that there's nothing wrong with Jory, and he's just having a rough time adjusting to public school. And then, you know what? Maybe this was a bad idea. Maybe we shouldn't have put him in public school. Actually, you know what? We're pulling him out of school. And they hang up. And so Jory's just like, wow, they're really on my side. Caleb tells him that the bunker's almost done anyway, so it's almost time for the other sign to happen for them to go in. So it was like, he won't need school anyways. He's like, it's fine. He will put you back on the regular schedule, and it'll be okay. And one of the nights while they're down digging the bunker, Kit hits a nest of centipedes while she's digging, and it freaks her out, and she starts to scream. And she doesn't stop screaming. And Caleb's trying to be like, shh, but she doesn't stop because she's scared. She's freaked out. And so Caleb decides to get her to stop. He slaps her. And this hurts, and it shocks her that she stops screaming. And then he yells at her and takes her back towards the house. And Jory is shocked by this. He's never seen Caleb hit anybody, and he was just like, this is really shocking to them. And so they finish the rest of the night, and he's trying to talk with Kit and ask her, are you okay? It's gonna be okay. Except she doesn't want to talk to him. She doesn't want to look at him. She kind of snuggles into her bed a little bit and ignores him. So he goes to sleep, and he oversleeps because he's been digging all night. And when he wakes up, he is trying to find Kit to see if she's okay, and she's nowhere to be found. And when he tells his mom and Caleb, he's like, where's Kit? I can't find Kit anywhere. That's when they tell him that Kit was taken by the officials. And so he's really upset. He's just like, how could this have happened? He's like, I thought if I stopped being friends with April that this wouldn't happen, but I guess it already stemmed from that whole first visit from Child Protective Services. So he's just really upset that he lost his best friend, which was Kit. And so they finish the bunker, and Caleb tells him that it's almost time. And one of the things that's pointed out in the book is how much Caleb does not like Kit. Caleb does not like to be around Kit alone, or he doesn't like for her to be alone with Ansel. He doesn't like, she's just unnerving to him. He won't let her pick up Ansel, and he won't let her just play with Ansel or anything. He tries to keep her away from his kid, and he doesn't like her, and he's always been unnerved by her. So the book shows us a lot of different times where you can just tell that Caleb does not like this child. And so they're getting ready to go into the bunker. Caleb tells them that they paid up the rest of the month's bills and everything, and that they need to clean up the house and make sure that, the gas is disconnected, that the water's turned off, and all of these type of things. And he's like, we need to turn on the lights so when it gets dark, it looks like there's still some people in here. We'll have the radio on so it sounds like there's people in here. And Jory asks him why, and he says, so it'll take longer for them to notice that we're gone. And so he tells Jory, he's like, I need you to check the mail to make sure that the mailbox is empty so they can fill it back up. And hopefully by the time they realize that we're gone, it'll be a month or two and we'll already be sealed in the bunker. So he's like, okay. Jory goes to the mailbox and he opens it up. And inside he sees a little playhouse made out of sticks, popsicle sticks, and colored and everything. And that was a thing him and Kit used to do. They used to build these little houses, and they would have them really spectacular colors and all of these type of things. That was just something they did, was build these little houses together. And he sees this little house, and then he turns it around and everything, and it says, I'm fine, and has a little line and says Kit. And so he's just like, he's really happy that she's okay, because he didn't know what happened to her. He doesn't know what being taken by the officials means. So he's just really happy that Kit's okay. And so he's like, yes, she's fine. I wonder if I can contact her before we go into the bunker. And then Caleb's like, it's time. We are going right now. So they all start to go towards the canyon and towards the bunker. And when they get to the bottom of the canyon, Caleb tells them to head inside. And then this is the time where Jory says, no. And Caleb's like, what? Jory's like, did you call the officials to come take Kit? And Caleb admits that he was the one who called the Child Protective Services and told them that there was a girl here who they found on their property and they don't know where she's from. And he said that he did this because she was too unpredictable and that they couldn't count on her. So she needed to go. Jory gets really upset, and then he tells his mom that we can't go in there. We can't trust Caleb. And she's just kind of standing there, and he's like, we'll have other people to help us. He's like, I know people. And so Jory's mom tells Caleb, no, that they're not going to go in there. And Caleb's like, come on, let's go. And she's like, no, I'm not. And she stands by Jory. So Caleb gets upset, and he tries to grab Ansel from Jory's mother's arms. And he's trying to fight her to get Ansel so he can go into the bunker with Ansel. And Jory grabs a shovel that's been left there from when they were digging, uses it like a weapon, and hits Caleb. And so he stops trying to grab Ansel, and he is holding it out to him, and he's like, you leave them alone. And so Caleb got hit in the arm, and he's just like, all right, fine. He goes into the bunker, looks at them, and then seals himself in. So when the bunker sealed from the inside, it had a trap mechanism. So a bunch of rocks and dirt and stuff would fall down over it, so it'll look like just a normal landslide happened. Like a natural type of thing, and you couldn't tell there was a bunker underneath it. So he seals himself in. And then Jory and his mom, they start to walk up the canyon, and his mom's like, I'll make some calls in the morning. And Jory's like, It's fine. Everything's going to be fine. I know so many people, and they will all pitch in to help us because they're good people, and that's what good people do. And then he wonders about Kit. And then the story ends. Except the book ends with an excerpt from the author's next book, which is Race the Night. So this is, I don't know if you guys, this is just, the Race the Night is just Kit's story. That's just talking all about Kit. That's just what happened to her and her backstory. And that's the end of Watch the Sky. I didn't know Watch the Sky was a middle grade or a YA book. It was just lumped into a bunch of different books that I was like, oh, you know what? That looks neat. I'll see what it is. And I didn't even realize that. But yeah, it says Disney right here. So I don't know if they have like a whole movie or whatever with it. But it's also like middle grade YA. I rated this book what did I rate it? I rated this book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's not bad. Like I said, middle grade YA, and I had to think of it of a story like my son would read. And I wouldn't mind my son reading this with some context. I would like for him to be able to ask me questions because it's a voodoo lore dump here. I was raised in the middle of nowhere with a large distrust of any large form of government or people because I was raised on a reservation in the middle of nowhere. So I was taught from my parents and any kind of adult figure that you can't trust anybody. You can't believe what they say, especially the government, because look at how many treaties they've broken. I was told to question absolutely everything as a child, and I did, and I still do now. And now I'm like, no, I need more information to get to form a coherent opinion on things. So I don't like that. I had a large emphasis in this book to not believe, but if somebody tells you to question everything, then they're hiding something from you. Or it put Caleb was not a good person. Like he was not a great character. But he was completely wrong because he told them to question everything, and he was a prepper. That's what he was. He lost his marbles a little bit, and that's kind of how he was. And I'm just like, okay, yes. And I like how that they put an emphasis on Jory making friends. I think that's a really good part of the story, was that he could make friends, except he had this one, just little, the one friend, April, who was just like, she decided she was going to make friends with him, whether he decided to or not. And that she was going to have other friends introduced to him, and he was just going to kind of have to deal with it. They were going to be his friends, and that was it. Until Jory said, you're not my friend anymore, and made her cry. But I did like how there was an emphasis on making friends, and that it was okay to like answer questions in school. And then I don't know. It was a very odd book. I agreed with a lot of the things in it, but at the same time, I'm like, there's an asterisk here. There's an asterisk here. I need, like, if my kid were to read this and like tell me things about it, like, okay, yes, but you also need to know this. Okay, yes, but. And Jory's mom was also not a good character. At the end, it praised her a lot for leaving Caleb, but I'm like, well, where were all of these things going up forward to here? Like, did you really believe this? Did you, like, this is not how things would really work. Like, I think that was my biggest problem with this book, is I'm just like, this isn't how things work. I don't know how this would work like this. Like, these characters do not feel like real characters. The children did, which I guess in a middle grade book, that's what you're looking for. The children look and feel like real characters. And Jory's like thinking on this. I'm like, yeah, I get that. That's like something my kid would say. But it also feels like this was an introduction to kind of get you into what Kit's story was. It feels like a prequel to Kit. And it emphasized that a lot. It tell you like a little bit about Kit, enough for you to be like, oh, that's interesting, and then it'd rip it away. And it'll rip it away, and so you're like, well, okay. And so you have all of these little dangling points of interest where it's surrounding Kit, and then there's no resolution to those. And apparently you have to read the other book to get that information. And I'm just like, oh, I'm not interested in these characters enough that I'm going to read a companion book for it. But maybe you are. I don't know. Like I said, 2.5 stars. It was just, the adults didn't feel like adults. The most I could think would be the mom that called CPS, except I'm like, why would you call CPS when you just didn't know the story to this? Like, I would have called... Like, I don't know anybody who would have been like, I need to call CPS because this child did not answer me. And she looks a little dirty. Like, that didn't feel real. The adults didn't feel like adults. Like, Jory and one of his friends only felt like real people. But that was Watch the Sky. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, afternoon, whatever it is where you are. And if you are interested in this book, I will put down in the description below where you can buy it new from your local bookstore. If you want to buy it through a used place, if you want to buy a used book, I'll put that link down there. Or if you're in the United States, if you want to rent it through your library, I'll put that link down in the description below as well. Don't forget to do all of the YouTube things, like, subscribe, all of that. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have an amazing time, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.